Hey there, how y'all doing this fine morning? This is Data on trail again. I'm headed to Kuwohi, or Clingman's Dome. I didn't shoot very much at the shelter last night because the double spring gap shelter was full. We had 10 of the 14 slots filled up, and it was a nice crowd. A young couple from St. Louis, a local lady on a hike on her own, and 6 high school friends, young men, out kind of on a post-graduation trip together. It was very, very cool. Nice group of young men, nice lady, nice couple, good conversations. It is 6:30. This is about when I wanted to get out of camp. As you can tell, it's kind of misty behind me still. Sun is up, but I should make Kuwohi by, I don't know, 7:30 or 8, something like that. And today's kind of a big day for me emotionally. I'm hiking to Kuwohi in part to distribute some of my mother's ashes. My mama passed away in February of this year, and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park was one of her favorite places on the whole planet. So I'm missing my mother very much these days, and I thought I'd bring her along on this trip and spread some of her ashes at one of her favorite places. So in the meantime, I'll give you a brief look at the sunrise here in this pine forest near Double Spring Gap Shelter, and I'll be on my way. So I'm about a half an hour in and about a half a mile north of Double Spring Gap Shelter, walking through this pine forest where the ground is all covered in ferns. There are little bogs I have to negotiate. And I keep it, it's like something out of the Chronicles of Narnia or something. I keep expecting, Lord of the Rings characters to pop up out of the woods. Trolls or some dwarfs, or maybe even a hobbit or a wizard or something. I have a double blaze here, which I know means the Goshen Prong Trail is coming up, the junction with it. 2.2 miles to Kuwohi. I've come 0.6. And then the other sign says the Goshen Prong Trail. This part of the trail has been so cruisy. I'm just carrying both poles in one hand, letting the video run. Oh, and there was smell-o-vision. Goodness. It smells like Christmas. There's pine trees sitting everywhere. An occasional little bird joins me on trail this morning. In the midst of that beautiful shot, there's a little hummingbird wanting to make a guest appearance. Don't know if that'll show up on camera or not, but there he sits. It's 8:30 and I am 6/10 of a mile from Kuwohi, and I've reached the Kuwohi bypass trail. Just gonna let the camera focus for a minute, see if you all can pick up the white blazes that mark the trail to Kuwohi. So in case you didn't, that's the bypass trail. This is the trail to Kuwohi. Yes, folks, that white blaze on that rock, that white blaze there on that angled, sharply angled rock, and then off in the distance you might be able to see on a pine tree another white blaze. So I'm obviously not going to bypass Kuwohi, but this is a fun, tricky part of the hike right here. Right across that rock ledge. It's 9:30, and I got up to Kuwohi and took some video, scattered some on my mother's ashes. I had a couple of nice conversations with people. I didn't narrate much of what I did because by 9 a.m. it wasn't crowded, but people were starting to show up, and they were having family moments. So it was nice. I took a couple of family photos for people and stuff like that, and so I enjoyed that. And talked to them a little bit about my mama and about my time up there and my trip on the trail, and I feel pretty good about that. I'm 7 miles now, 7.1, something like that, from Newfound Gap, where I'm going to get off trail today and for this round. And it is about 1,000 feet of ascending and 2,000 feet of descending. So far it's been pretty technical in the first 2 or 3 tenths of a mile northbound out of Kuwohi. A lot of rock scrambling. Had to go hands-on at one point and crawl down a couple of rocks. But now it leveled out some, so I stopped and had a snack at the bottom of the big archway that leads up to the top of the viewing tower. It's clouding up a little bit, but it doesn't look like it has decided to rain. It also looks like it could rain at any minute. And at the pace I've been moving, I can't tell because of the terrain. I will either come off trail at 2 or 3 o'clock or at 5 or 6 o'clock. This is kind of what I meant by how technical it gets. Hard to hike fast over all these jagged rocks. It's 10 o'clock. I've got about 6.5 miles left to go. And for the first time in a while, there's a flat enough piece of ground that I can show you all a little bit of what this pine forest looks like just north of Kuwohi. Been downhill to this point, but it's been very rocky downhill. Now it's getting back to being a little bit more technically challenging, like this drop off right here. So I think I'm going to put the phone away. So, got about 6 miles left. And for a while now, the AT has been paralleling the road that runs through the park. So it's actually not as annoying as I thought it would be, because it's kind of reassuring. I know I have 6 miles to go, and then I'm going to hitchhike a ride on that same road down to Gatlinburg. And so the fact that there is So the fact that there's traffic on it now reassures me that I'll be able to find some kindly stranger to give me a ride down to Gatlinburg. But it's kind of fun to be hiking through the woods and hear somebody's big old Harley go roaring by. It's 11:30 and I made it to the Mount Collins Shelter Blue Blaze Access Trail. It's also a crossing point for some other trails. And Newfound Gap is 4.5 miles northeast of me, so I'm going to hydrate for a minute and then head off. The weather is still favorable, but it's not real favorable. But the path, so I'll show you here, the path has gotten much cruisier. And it's mostly downhill from here. There's a little bit of uphill, but I think that this part of the park's path gets hiked a lot, not just for the AT, but also for the other connecting trails. Just seems very well worn and well groomed. And between that and it being downhill, I've been making pretty good time over the last half an hour especially. It's so boggy in this part of the trail that they put in hand-hewn log boards for you. It is now about 2:30 and I have about 2.5 miles to go to Newfound Gap. So I've made really good time. Part of the trail through the spruce forest is really well manicured. So I should come off trail by sometime around 3 o'clock, maybe even a little bit earlier. When I get to Newfound Gap, I'll spend a little time thinking about my mama and distributing a few more of her ashes. And that's one of the other places we used to always go when I was a kid on vacations, was to Newfound Gap. We'll see when we get there. The biggest goal at Newfound Gap, of course, is going to be to hitch a ride into Gatlinburg, where I have a hotel waiting. Always a little mixed feelings on the last couple hours on trail. on one hand, I've been out for 7 days. It's been a really good hike. I've enjoyed a lot of it. Hopefully some of that comes through on the videos. On the other hand, I'm missing Mrs. Date a little bit and the comforts of civilized life. Some kind of hawk flew through here. Don't know if that'll be on the camera or not, but there he went. Anyway, one of those fun parts for me of my last day on a long section hike, and for me any more long seems to mean a week or a week and a half. Well, that's not long by some people's standards, and I'm certainly not a through hiker. But I always get to thinking about the next hike. I think I'll probably go up and do another section of the Ice Age Trail next. 3 or 4 weeks from now. Probably up through the Kettle Moraines. It is much flatter up there than this. There's a fence line running down the side of this mountain. And right in the middle of Appalachian Trail, there's this odd contraption. This is a hog gate. And this is to prevent the feral hogs that are on this other side, the north side of this, from getting over and tearing up the spruce side of the forest. I think I have about a mile left now. A little bit of this uphill, and then the rest of it's downhill into Newfound Gap. That fence has been running along the side of the AT for, I don't know, probably a half a mile since I got up that climb. And now we have the second feral hog fence. So it's 1:30 now, and I am 8/10 of a mile from Newfound Gap. And wouldn't you know it, the trail gods have decided my trip would not be complete without getting rained on a little bit one last time. So I got the raincoat on and the pack cover on, and I'm heading down the trail. But I got 8/10 of a mile in the rain to finish out my hike. Well, I made it to Newfound Gap. And it is one busy intersection. People do not seem to care that there's a pedestrian in the pedestrian crosswalk at all. So I made it to Clingman's Dome, Mama. Kind of wish you could be here with me. The Smoky Mountains are really smoky this afternoon, and it's sprinkling still a little bit. I'm going to distribute some ashes, and then I'm going to try to hitch a ride into Gatlinburg. Well, I started to try to hitch a ride out of Newfound Gap, but nobody's going anywhere right now because the road into Gatlinburg shut down for an accident. Sheriff's park ranger's got his truck across the way, and until the accident gets resolved, I'm going to be a tourist too. It's a nice shot of this range though. If I was going to be hiking, that's what I'd be hiking over. Rain keeps just kind of coming and going, so it's not a bad day to be stuck up here on top of Newfound Gap. So I made it off trail. I outran the rain. This is the pack explosion at the Days Inn in Gatlinburg. I had to lay a lot of things out just because I got caught in the rain toward the end of the day, and some things got a little bit moist. Not bad really, and I think things are drying out pretty well. The tent I hadn't been able to dry out in a couple of days, so I've got it on the floor spread out, and it's drying pretty well. And I've spread some other things out over here. I took a shower. So I did beat the rainstorm, turns out, off of the mountain just barely. I got a little bit rained on toward the end, but I made it to Newfound Gap and shot some video, and I probably have shown some of that already. And then the weirdest set of things happened. I had to get a ride down off the mountain, of course, from Newfound Gap, and I had a couple of phone numbers and I had a couple of bars. So I tried calling those numbers and couldn't reach anybody, couldn't get an answer, couldn't get a response. Meanwhile, some unfortunate person just down the mountain, a couple hundred feet, had an accident on a motorcycle, a pretty serious one. So the park rangers blocked off the exit from Newfound Gap that went down to Gatlinburg and didn't let anybody leave. So now there's a whole parking lot's full of people, and they've seen the site already and they're ready to leave. They're all lining their cars up. And it's starting to rain again, a little bit harder. And nobody's going to pick up a hitchhiker in that situation because legitimately they've been told it may be hours. At one point, one of the rangers told them it might be as much as a 2-hour wait. Told us all that. So I was really getting sort of perplexed about what I would do to get off this mountain. By then it was 3 o'clock or so, maybe 4. And I had seen a couple of folks earlier who looked like they were kind of, from a similar tribe, as it were. That is, bright colored clothing and interesting looking folks. But I was talking to people around the Newfound site and just volunteering to take family photographs for people like people used to do for us, and being friendly and sort of hoping somewhere in that someone would give me a ride. And as it started to rain, I decided I had to get my raincoat on real quick and go into the restrooms and wait out this last rain burst because it looked like it was going to be pretty serious. And a lady in a little colorful t-shirt walked up to me and asked me if I'd been hiking the trail, and I said yes. And she said, "Are you trying to find a ride down off the mountain to Gatlinburg?" And I said, "Well, yeah, actually I am." She said, "Well, come get in our truck and you can wait it out with us, or a car, and you can wait it out with us and we'll give you a ride down there." So she was a real lifesaver. She and her husband were there on a long family reunion kind of thing, and they'd been in town for a while, evidently. And we had a really nice conversation down the hill, and she kind of seemed like she is interested in hiking, but I don't know, if she'll ever do anything with it or not. But at least we had a really nice conversation about hiking and vacationing and travel, and they had also had some really interesting and unique experiences. So they got me all the way down to the Days Inn, dropped me off, and wouldn't take a dime from me, which was really nice. It really kind of saved my life. And then here I'm in Gatlinburg. I went out and bought the proverbial souvenir t-shirt because I didn't have anything else clean to wear anyway. And I went out and had dinner and had a Jamba Juice kind of shake, and I'm back at the hotel now drying everything out and getting ready to get packed up. So in the meantime, the folks who have been looking after my truck for the past week are going to drive it up here and drop it off tomorrow morning. So I'll head back to see Mrs. Data and lick my wounds. And it's been a pretty good, 7 days of hiking at this point. And I think, I don't know exact mileage, but I'll put it in here somewhere. But I think I'm up over 420 or 430 miles total on the AT now. And I will say that of all the hiking I've done in the past year, this 4-day stretch in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park was absolutely the most difficult stretch of hiking I've done ever anyway. Smokies are no joke. I know they say the whites and
Katahdin are more difficult, and so now I'm really worried about that. And I still have half of the Smokies to go. But in the meantime, I'm really pretty happy with this week. I went ahead and came off trail because the bear situation north of Newfound Gap is much more intense than what I understood before I got here. The bears are not just coming, not just around the shelter sites more often than they usually are. Evidently, there have been some direct conflicts between hikers and bears in which the bears were aggressive towards hikers, not just stealing the food bag, but like taking the food bag from a hiker or stalking a hiker in one case down the trail. That's very aberrant behavior for black bears, very unusual. As one of the rangers I talked to on trail said, she'd never seen anything like that before, and I had never heard of anything like that before. So I've never really been concerned about hiking around the black bears because they're usually, run off if you bang your poles and yell at them. They're adverse to human contact in my experience, and in the experience of everyone I've ever known. So I decided that between some thunderstorms rolling in this week and the black bears misbehaving so badly, that I would call it quits here in Newfound Gap and go back home and lick my wounds and come up with a plan for coming back to hike the northern half of the Smokies sometime later on this year. So here I am at day's end. I'm bushed. It was a hard hiking today because the rain came in and I sped up my pace. It was a workout. And I've had a good dinner and eaten up and cleaned, showered. I smell like a regular human being now. Feel like a regular human being. And I think I'm going to call it a night. So thank you for following along on these hiking journeys, and I hope you all had a good day.